I'm making banana bread today. This should be delicious and moist, and let's get started. To start off, preheat your oven to 325 degrees and double check that the oven rack inside that you're going to use is in the center of the oven. Next, we're going to grease and flour the pan. I like glass pans for banana bread so much better than the metal. Glass is pretty cheap, so if you don't have any glass loaf pans, I suggest you buy a couple. Now, one thing that you can grease them with is we're going to be using a whole stick of butter in a few minutes, and you can take that wrapper from the butter and rub it on the inside of the pan instead of using oil, and that works pretty well. But if you don't have enough, or maybe if you took the butter out of this wax paper wrapper when it was still really cold, you don't have much butter left. I waited a little while so it was closer to room temperature. Then you can use a little bit of tiny bit of olive oil and take the wax paper if you want and spread it around, or you can use a paper towel to spread around. And then the other thing you want to do is put a little bit of flour in. So I want to see if I can show you how to do this on a video. So you're going to end up shaking the extra out, and so you just want to shake it around. So first you're going to be tilting the pan every which way and getting as much flour to touch the grease sides of the pan, especially in the corner. You just keep tilting it till you get as much. It doesn't have to come all the way to the top. And then when you're done, just shake the extra. I'm going to move the camera over the sink. So you can see I'm just going to shake the extra out over the sink. And now we're ready. Now our pan is ready. I have a medium-sized bowl here, and I'm going to mix the dry ingredients in. So the first thing is I've already measured out 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I use unbleached. And then in this little bowl, I have 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, and 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. So I'll put all that in there, whoops, and then I'll take a whisk. You can use a spoon, you can use a fork, just stir that around, and next we'll get over to the butter and sugar in a large bowl. I have a stand mixer, and in here I have 1 stick of butter that's already been softened. So to soften your butter, if you're new to cooking, take a whole stick of butter out of your refrigerator early and let it sit in your kitchen counter, or even open it up and put it into a large bowl like this and cover it with a towel and let it sit there on the kitchen counter to soften. I'm using unsalted butter, but you can use salted, it doesn't matter. So then in here I have a half a cup of white sugar and a half a cup of brown sugar. Now if you only have white sugar and you don't have brown, that's fine, just use a whole cup. So now I'm going to cream these two together. The butter might not be as soft as I wanted it to be. Okay, now I'm going to put in 2 eggs that I've already cracked into a little bowl to make sure they're okay. And I'm also going to add the vanilla extract, which I've already measured out. And that's 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now we're ready for the bananas, and I want to show you the best way to deal with bananas and mash them up. What I'm going to want for this recipe is 1.5 cups of mashed bananas. So I have my 1.5 cups here. And I have bananas that have been getting extra ripe on the kitchen counter. They can even be more brown than this. And I have two, and then I have a third one that's actually great for eating because it's just got the brown speckles. But if we need more, then that's what I'll do. But one banana is definitely not going to be enough. But I'll start with it. We might not need all 3. So I might just use a partial of the third one. And so I'm just going to mash it. Oh, see, the further along they are in ripening, even when they're really, really brown, the better. They're just so easy. The funny story about this is when I was in 7th grade and taking home ec, which we did in those days, we were on the sewing side, and I saw on the cooking side in the kitchen, there was a bunch of bananas that were completely brown, and I thought, wow, somebody must have forgotten those bananas over there. They're rotten. And I said to my home ec teacher, did you know that there are some bananas over in the kitchen side that are rotten? And she said, yes, we're going to make banana bread out of those. And I kind of made a questioning face, and she said, have you never had banana bread? And I said, I've had banana bread before. My mother makes it out of a box. Oh my God. And the words were halfway out of my mouth when I realized what I was saying to a home ec teacher, that my mother made banana bread out of a box mix. And the look on her face was that of horror. Why would anybody make anything from a box when you can make it fresh? Okay, so I am going to need all 3 bananas. So each of these 2 bananas, well, was about 1/2 cup. They were pretty big. The longer they sit, okay, so I am going to need, well, actually, I don't want to mash the whole darn thing. Let's do most of it and see, because I don't want to have, if I have too much banana in here, then it's going to be too wet. And if you've ever taken a banana bread out of the oven thinking it was done because it's been in there a long time and the toothpick says it's coming out clean, and then you go to slice it and the very center is not done, that's not fun. Okay, so I'm doing this last one. I think you can see this. Alright, so I do need the whole banana. So this took 3 whole, very, very ripe bananas in order to get 1.5 cups. So before you make this, just choose 3 bananas from your banana bowl and let them sit on the counter and don't let anybody throw them out. Alright, I'm ready to put the bananas into the mixture now. Alright, now I'm going to dump in all of the banana and mix that up. And the milk. This is 1/2 cup of milk. I'm using almond milk. You can use cow milk. You can use buttermilk. 1/2 cup. Now I'm ready for the dry ingredients. And here's the trick. You don't want to overmix. So if you don't have a stand mixer like this, Then you're going to want to mix this with a spoon, not with beaters. But I'm just going to put it on the very first speed, which is like stirring with a spoon. And then I'll probably finish with a spoon. Alright, I want to get the tattle out of the way. If you over stir the batter at this point, you could end up getting a bread that's just a little bit tough. I'm going to open this up and pour the rest in. I'm going to stir the rest of it by hand. Take out my the beater. And like I said, I'm going to stir it just a little bit on my own. You can use any kind of spoon for this. To make sure that it's completely, not any surprises in there. Okay, now it's ready to pour into the pan. It's good to use a rubber or a silicone spatula when you're doing this next step, pouring into here. Oh, and then one other ingredient that's optional that you would have put in right after the flour mixture is nuts. So if you like nuts, use a half a cup. Walnuts are really good. I'm not using them this time. But a half a cup of walnuts. Let's see, maybe I can get some that are light. Oh, I want them to be light. Okay, and get as much out as possible. And because it's a wet batter, it pretty much smooths the top itself. And now I'm going to put it into the oven on the middle rack. We're going to bake this in that 325 degree oven for an hour and 10 minutes. But we are going to test it at an hour, so that's what we'll look at next. Well, 1 hour has gone by, so now what we're going to do is test it. And if you're new to baking, you want to buy yourself a box of toothpicks. So what you're going to do is put it in the center. If it does not come out clean, it's very wet, so we've got at least 10 more minutes to go, maybe even longer. So I'm going to put the pot holders on, push that in, and continue for 10 more minutes, and then we'll test it again. All right, we're going to try it again. Now it's been an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm going to put in, oh, it's still coming out wet. Right in the middle. Let's see. Oh, it's very wet. Surprising for an hour and 10 minutes. So, because it's so wet, I'm actually going to put it in for another 10 minutes, not 5. Yeah, I'm going to do another 10. Okay, here we are again. It still looks really wet in the middle, I'm telling you. I don't know if it's just moist. It's still coming out. And the crumb isn't dry. If it comes out with a crumb on it, it's okay, but you have to test the crumb. And I still think it's wet. So this time, I'm tasting it, it is wet. This time I'm going to add another 5 minutes. All right, are you sick of this yet? I'm sick of it. That's the thing with these quick breads, they're not always quick. All right, I'm getting a little bit of a crumb. Let me see if I can get one and show you a little closer. There's a little bit of a crumb on here. It's not necessarily wet anymore. And just because it took so long, I'm a little bit leery. And I'll poke a few more right in the center. But I am feeling better about it. All right. I think it's done. I think those were crumbs and they weren't wet, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to cool it off. I'm going to let this bread sit on a cooling rack for 5 minutes before I take it out. 10 minutes could be okay too. So 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll be ready to take it out of the pan. Now that it's cooled down for a little bit, I'm going to take it out of the pan to finish cooling. And actually, it feels pretty loose, so I just put in a regular dinner knife to loosen the sides and the ends, and the corners. It's going to flip right out. And it's going to be hot right now, so I am going to use the pot holders. It's actually steaming. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to turn it over. And I'm going to let it finish cooling here. And don't slice it until it is cool, but I will do one more clip to show you what it looks like after it's sliced. When I'm slicing bread, I like to use a serrated knife. So most of you probably know what this is, but for those of you who are new to cooking, the serrated knife has these little edges. So it doesn't matter if you use a large one or a small one. It is easier to use the large. Just better for cutting bread. And I think this is really going to be good. I had to leave the house for a moment. When I came back in, the smell was so nice. So this is how moist it is. I can feel it. It's not a dry bread. It's really nice and moist. So give it a try. Some people like to spread butter on their banana bread, but it's just as good plain. I completely forgot to tell you how to wrap and store this. I wrap it in plastic wrap and then in foil. It can sit on your kitchen counter, but just for a couple days. Otherwise, after that, you really need to put it in the refrigerator or else it's going to get moldy. So if you want, wrap it in plastic and then in foil and put it right into your refrigerator. Or you can wrap it like this, plastic then foil, then put it into a large freezer bag and put it in your freezer.